Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Enough to Keep Going podcast. This is episode number 182. I'm your host, TowMaster99, and this is our very first deep dive for March of 2021. We're going to go through the news stories from the past couple weeks or so. But before that, let's get to our other hosts. Tonight, we were supposed to have all four on tonight, but DBQ Ham could not make it tonight, so hopefully he'll be back either next week or within the next couple weeks. But we have our other two co-hosts, which is Mr. Swiss Guard. Swiss, how are you tonight?
Doing very well, thanks.
Excellent. And the techno wizard, Mr. Gascles Stamos. Gascles, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good. I'm doing well. Tonight, we got a good bit of news. It was fairly busy for news the last couple weeks, but we're going to start off with some EA news. Unfortunately, it's some bad news. So this past week, Christian Daly, who is the studio director, I believe, or was, I don't know if he still is, in BioWare, he put out a blog post basically saying that Anthem is not going to be updated anymore. So their big Anthem Next, as people were calling it, was supposed to be in development these past few months or so, maybe even a year. And he came out and said that they're stopping production on that, and pretty much any new content basically coming to Anthem. So the live service is still going to be running as it exists today, which is their words, or his words. So no more Anthem. Basically, they just said because of the past year of COVID and just how the workforce was going, it was kind of putting a dent in everything, and they're actually turning their energies now over toward Dragon Age and the Mass Effect titles, along with trying to keep up or trying to provide quality updates for Star Wars: The Old Republic, which I always forget that they do. So unfortunately, I mean, it's unfortunate. I know a couple of us, Gascles and DBQ and myself, played it a couple times or so, 2 or 3 times. We had fun with it. I mean, it was kind of a good just multiplayer gameplay. I kind of went through the storyline, I guess if you want to call it, that was there a little bit. I didn't think it was super great, but I still had just fun with the game. I thought the gameplay was pretty spot on. The flying, kind of like your Iron Man flying through the worlds, was pretty good, and definitely a lot better from the beta that they had originally. Excuse me. And just the game mechanics I thought were fairly decent. So, but it's kind of a bummer. But I think everybody kind of saw it coming. I don't know if Gascles, if you had any thoughts on this.
Well, I guess
you're starting to get back into it.
I guess what a question is that your read on the story? So I took the comment as we are not continuing down the path of Anthem 2.0, but I regard that as something different. Like, so I didn't take it as, there's, as far as I can tell, I don't think that there's any like planned date or roadmap right now for kind of any sunsetting of Anthem, and I don't know. I mean, I know he said, Anthem 2.0 we're not working on. I don't know that I know that means, there will never be another season, or there'll never be, any new content at all. I would think if there's, a team there maintaining it, that, they might still be engaged in some activity. I don't know. I mean, I completely agree with you that, what everybody was waiting for was the big fell swoop of, an Anthem 2.0, right? Basically a re-release of the game, and that, agreed, is definitely going away.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't go out and say it, obviously, that we're not going to do anything in the future, but it kind of seems like they're not. Like, I mean, the whole studio is going to focus on the other properties right now. So, I mean, I guess for now it's probably dead. Maybe in the far future they might come back to it, or at least make Anthem 2 or something like that, or Anthem, some offshoot of it. But I personally don't see them doing anything more with just kind of keeping it alive right now, and maybe just throwing like whatever events they had used in the past, like just kind of redoing those, and maybe throwing like an extra gun or something in there, or whatever, or skins or whatever. But I don't think they're going to be doing anything extra going into the future, at least the near future.
Yeah, and I definitely I'm sorry. Go ahead, Swiss.
I was gonna say, as I kind of feel like this is expected. Um, when Anthem didn't launch terribly successfully, and then they announced this initiative to kind of salvage it and kind of remake it on the fly. I think we are all a little bit incredulous at the time. Like, I feel like all of our opinions were, if they can do it, great. Um, but that's rather ambitious. And I just, with these other properties that need to be worked on, especially like the new Dragon Age and everything, that team that was working to salvage Anthem, that's some low hanging fruit of like some resources that you can move on to stuff that might appear uh, more profitable in the short term, and in the short term and the long term. So um, it really wasn't a surprise to me that they made this announcement. I wouldn't expect the live service to continue that much longer. I mean, how much it's one thing to just kind of leave it on a server and running. I don't know how much they're going to um keep maintaining it. It just feels like this is kind of the step towards it going away. But hopefully, like some of the planning that they had done, like you alluded to, Tao, that may resurface years from now in an Anthem 2 or something. Some of the lessons learned, and they can just kind of start with a fresher slate. But um, talking about the COVID stuff, when did they announce Anthem next? Like when was that? That was pre-COVID, right? Yeah. So I don't know if it was already kind of on the edge and COVID just pushed it over, or if COVID's kind of like a way to soften the impact of the announcement. But um I wasn't really terribly surprised when this came out.
Yeah, and I'll have to go back and look and listen to our previous episodes. I don't remember being on the side that this was going to go away, right? I mean, in my mind, we have the experience of Ubisoft continuing to plug away at Rainbow Six Siege. Um, in other past experiences where what we've seen is that companies, particularly big companies that have really really healthy wallets and tons of cash, right, that they have the ability to apply all of that muscle and all of that and all of those resources to a resurgence of a game out of the gate. In that, through gaming history, we up to a certain point we definitely had that paradigm where, like, if you came out of the gate bad, you just weren't going to recover. Like, there was no way to catch back up to a bad launch. But in recent years, since games as a service has become more of a thing, I feel like we've seen much more of a tendency for people to just keep dumping money into something and eventually turning it around to where it's something, really positive. I mean, we have the Rainbow Six Siege case, but I know that we've got another couple of case studies. I
Final,
can't think. Yeah, go ahead.
Final Fantasy 14 is probably a good one.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a really good one. So I don't know that I personally was in the mindset, and I definitely know that for a fact that when that team out of Austin was engaged, that I was definitely on board, thinking that there was a good potential for them to turn around because that team has the proven past
Yeah.
performance of.
I think that's what put it on our radar as like it could work. Like, cuz yeah, I think now I remember you kind of that was the impression, that because they moved it to that specific team, that maybe they were investing in it maybe a little bit more long term. So I might misbe maybe I was just a pessimist at the time as well. And that's the impression that I had from back then. But
But
um
but I mean
yeah, I don't know. It didn't when it came across the wire, it didn't strike me as anything like shocking.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm sure there are people out there who didn't. I'm sure there are people who were like, wishing ill on the game and the franchise and EA from time beginning, and were just, rah rah in the fact that the thing finally tipped over. What I can definitely say add to it too is that, what we didn't know at the time was just how far in the bathtub BioWare was going to go, right? We didn't really know. I mean, we knew about Anthem, but the stories that came out about after, which again, I don't necessarily agree with the way that was all painted, but it's just been that and I forget what Andromeda, Mass Effect Andromeda, and then Casey Hudson and Dara leaving, and how that whole thing culminated. I could definitely, I can definitely see, Chris Daly saying, "Look, you guys are asking me to maintain the old Republic. You're asking me now, you were asking me to turn this Anthem thing around. Now you're coming to me and telling me I got to run right the Dragon Age thing too." Like, I mean, I almost don't care if he had the resources out of BioWare Austin. Like, that individual just can't. I mean, probably is at my feeling of it is what I felt like I was reading between the tea leaves is just like the next level down below him. There's just not enough talent to spread that around to 3 teams actively engaged on like really. I mean, at least 2 of those projects are like super complex. If Old Republic is mostly ops and maintenance and is kind of pointed in a good direction, then those are fine. But the notion of Dragon Age and the challenge that Anthem 2.0 was going to be, probably just a little too much with the other directors and leads leaving the studio.
Yeah, and I don't. I mean, I wasn't when I first heard about this. I kind of had my reservations. But I was kind of hoping, like you said. I mean, we've kind of seen this in the past with other studios and other developers doing stuff like this, or kind of trying to do stuff like this. But I don't know. I think they were just they had just dug themselves too deep, excuse me, for Anthem to come back in any meaningful way. At least right now, like I said, hopefully in the future maybe they'll bring an Anthem 2 or something coming up, but we'll have to see. So rip for any Anthem updates, but you can still play it, so we can still jump on there at some point with DB maybe at some and have some fun. So we'll see what happens. So up next, still sticking with EA. We have EA some more prioritizing with the Battlefield series, I guess, please, and Swiss, or I guess, because if you want to start off.
Yeah, I think. But do I have the read on this right? This is an article that I voted for, but Swiss originally posted in the newsroom. So Swiss, if you want to take it, I'm fine with that too. I don't want to step on your toes.
No, it was just one where I probably put. I don't know if we both put. I don't know who posted it, but I wanted to vote for it as well. So rather than choosing something from the slate that I didn't really care as much about, I just said I will vote again for this particular story. So EA's working on another DICE is working on another Battlefield game. According to EA, it is a Battlefield game with never before seen scale. And the technical advancements of the new consoles are allowing the team to deliver on a true next-gen vision for the franchise. We have hands-on playtesting underway internally, and the team's been getting very positive feedback on the game as we've begun to engage our community. So they do want to launch it in 2021, and if it's an ambitious new title, they don't have as much time. Looks like they were looking for ways, I guess, to put more resources on the project, and enter Criterion, who has they've worked on Battlefront. Is that what it? Yeah, that's what I'm seeing. So they have a little bit of experience in this, even though, like, to me, when I think Criterion, I think racing games. So they're gonna like kind of stop working on Need for Speed for a while and pivot to the new Battlefield project, and Need for Speed will not be coming out until 2022. They're supposed to be going back to it, but I thought I saw something in the story that they were, I guess, with they mentioned the Codemasters, but I'm thinking that the acquisition of Codemasters means they feel like they don't need the Need for Speed title in their lineup, that they have some additional kind of racing alternatives coming from that crew. So it feels a little bit safer to put Criterion on Battlefield. The big thing for me is I guess it's just selfish that I've been waiting for a good Need for Speed, like another Need for Speed game, for a while. And I don't remember. There was one like a year or two ago that didn't do so hot. Um, but I've never really been a Battlefield player either, so it kind of is kind of a double whammy for me because they're taking a team that I really like on a franchise that I enjoy and putting them on a franchise that I don't really care for. So um, it's a little bit disappointing. And that was like the thing that popped out to me. Agasicles, do you feel like heavy investment in Battlefield is like wise? I mean, I guess it's kind of mandatory. I don't know how mandatory is it from EA's perspective, but um, Battlefield 5 was not that long ago, was it? I mean, that was just a year or two ago that that came out.
No, it's actually been out since it came out the same year as Titanfall 2, so I think that's 2000, or wait, I think it came out the year after Titanfall 2, right? Because Titanfall 2 came out was the one that launched right smack dab in between Call of Duty and that year's Battlefield. I think that was Battlefield 1, so Battlefield 5 was maybe the next year. So it's been out 2, maybe 3 years. Um, so and thank you very much. Well, I'm glad Tao had this on the agenda right after we just got done with the BioWare discussion, because EA is exactly one of those companies that I was thinking about, with the company who put the time and the resources and let some of the developers do what they wanted to do beyond the corporate direction to heavily monetize, and turned Battlefront around. I don't know that they really ever brought that game back into like the gamer love, but definitely to a point of recognition where I had moved on and had other things to do, but I definitely could see that some additional love and care had been put into Battlefront and made it less of the money grind that they had originally put it out. Sorry, I'm looping back now to the last article because now I remember Microsoft putting time and elbow grease in on Forza 7, I think it was, that launched with a ton of monetization around it and microtransactions, out the wazoo, and then that team turned that around. And then I'll go back to EA on this article in particular with Battlefield 5, where it came out. People kind of felt it was, um, a bit of a poop pile, and um, but that team like really cranked away on it, and Battlefield 5 I think is a better game today, particularly from a content perspective, from its beginnings, kind of like in the same way that Battlefront 2 was, with like a really sparse amount of content. And that all being said, I always felt that the Battlefield 5 War Stories, that essentially the single player campaign, was still an improvement over Battlefield 1. I preferred it. Um, so I think EA has to invest in Battlefield because they kind of own all of racing now. Right? I mean, once you buy Codemasters, I don't know what else there is out there from a racing perspective other than, young upstarts and journeymen who are trying to get into the game. I go back to, I can't even remember the developer's name, but the guys who now make World Rally Championship, or WRC, did a really great game last year, but they're still a challenger to the heir apparent in Codemasters. Um, so, I definitely agree with you, Swiss. Need for Speed as a franchise, needs some love, but I don't know that EA needs Need for Speed this year. And there hasn't been a good Need for Speed since what was before Need for Speed. I mean, really, since that Hot Pursuit version that we played, which was essentially Hot Pursuit 3, I think, or the third or fourth title, with that name label, across multiple generations. I like aspects of Need for Speed Rivals in the way that you were able to join up with a fellow cop in real time and have them respond to like your request for help. But I mean, it's been several years of like nothing really great coming out of the Need for Speed franchise. I don't know what this indicates. I don't know if, I mean, obviously the question has been, since that Codemasters acquisition, were they going to put Codemasters on the Need for Speed franchise to kind of turn it around? So I don't know if that's going to go into this mix, or if they're going to start it and Criterion is going to swing back and help. I don't know. But what's really interesting to me in this is that in the reprioritization of Criterion over to Battlefield, they have been helping out with Battlefront, but they have specifically been the vehicular guys on Battlefront, and specifically the guys who were doing the space battles. So one would think that this move indicates a much larger gameplay framework for vehicular combat in Battlefield than has previously existed. And I'm wondering, I want to say in Battlefield it's always been when you're in vehicles, you just have the third person view. So I'm kind of wondering if what we get in this is, when you go and jump on a tank, it doesn't just pull back to that third person view, but you actually have individual cockpit views depending on what station you're at. And so if you're a side gunner, that you actually get a cockpit layout of the side gunner turret, since Criterion obviously has that in their experience. So it'll be interesting to see. I kind of like the move just in terms of, I'm not, I'm sad that I've spent money on Anthem, right? On 2 platforms, and then 2 or 3 months later they turn around and are kind of shutting it down. But at the end of the day, I like the business move of corporations making decisions on where their best plays are and applying their most talented resources to those most critical plays. So I gotta respect it.
I remember in Battle. Sorry, Swiss, real quick before I forget. And I remember in Battlefield 1, in the tanks, in some of the tanks at least, I think driving, like if you're driving, it pulled out to a third person. But then there's the side gunners, and I'm pretty sure it was only that view of the side gun. It was like a first person view. So I don't know. I can't remember if you were able to switch back and forth in between though, like when you're in that side view or not. I remember that for sure.
That's absolutely possible. I haven't played the game enough to know that for certain. So that may very well have already been implemented.
Yeah, in 5, I don't know. I had never played 5, or I haven't played 5 yet. Maybe I will since it's on EA gameplay or gameplay now, or EA Play. But yeah, because I remember the Jets 2 and 4. I think you were able to go between the 2 perspectives, but I mean, they have a pedigree for vehicle combat and stuff like that. I'm just kind of wondering though. It's what, March now, and well, this is probably a couple weeks ago or last week at the latest that they did this. I mean, are they going to be able to do? I mean, they can't just like be doing vehicle stuff now, right? I mean, they're probably like maybe like what am I trying to say? Like building upon like what's already been there. I mean, because I mean, if they're trying to get this out by most likely holiday, because that's when usually the Battlefields come out, November, October or so. I can't see them making a huge dent in the gameplay that's already there, I would assume. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a software guy, so I can't technically speak on that. But I mean, it just seems like a short period of time to start them on the game now.
I mean, I'm guessing that they'll be okay. I mean, I don't know. I didn't get the feeling from this article that they just haven't been working on the game at all. It's just a matter of taking 100% of your staff and swinging them onto something instead of 50% of your staff. So, I mean, my guess is that this was a big enough ball in EA's playing field already that there were already some resources on it, and swinging those reserves over there will help them bring it over the line. I'm trying to remember. EA did they delay one of the Battlefields in the last few years, or did they skip a year?
That's what I was gonna say. Like, Battlefield 5 came out in November of 2018, and Battlefield 1 previous to that was like October of 2016. So
okay,
in a way, like, in a way, this has actually been a little bit longer of a hiatus.
So they did skip that year 2017, and they didn't go head to head with Call of Duty because they felt they needed the additional time. Of course, as soon as I say it, I'll be proven wrong. I am pretty confident that they're hell bent on making sure they don't miss this date, particularly with the first real holiday season that we expect the new consoles to really be in general availability.
Yeah. Yeah, and the last Need for Speed was Heat in 2019, and before that was Payback in 2017. So, and then just Need for Speed in 2015. They just rebranded.
All of which have been horrible. Yeah, it's been 3 iterations of really horrific.
says they had 2 in 2015, No Limits, and then just Need for Speed, just called Need for Speed. I don't remember what No Limits is though. I don't know if that was a mobile game or.
That may have been mobile or like a UWP app on Windows or something like that. I
Oh,
don't think it was like a full blown like normal production release like we think of.
Okay, yeah, because that's kind of weird that they'd have 2 in there. So I know we had mentioned Codemasters or you guys had mentioned Codemasters in there. Do you think? And I know Codemasters is like it's dirt in F1 racing franchises, but do you actually think they would take Codemasters and just throw them on Need for Speed at some point? I don't want to say throw, but I mean put on Need for Speed. Say, hey guys, you guys do vehicle stuff, so hey, why don't you just take this over?
It'll
Is it possible?
It'll
I
be
mean, I guess it's always
interesting.
possible.
Who did Codemasters do Test Drive Unlimited? Because I want to say,
don't think so.
Is that somebody else?
Yeah, I think that's somebody else. I can check real quick.
So it would just be Codemasters is out of. It says it was by Eden Games and published for Atari. So. And Eden Games again for TDU too. I don't know. It would be interesting. Codemasters is out of the UK. I feel like, and I think Criterion. So I think Criterion is here in the US. It's kind of just weird. Criterion's here in the US. So part of, and I think maybe the other reason why we're seeing this swing is they were already challenged to work with DICE, who is out of somewhere in Europe. Are they out of Sweden or Norway?
I think somewhere over there.
Norway,
Sweden,
somewhere in Scandinavia, maybe. So they already have a distance challenge, and then the pandemic means that people can't get on a plane and fly over there periodically. So so there's that, and I can understand again why they needed to swing full people onto it. Codemasters is out of the UK. That just naturally invokes me thinking about Forza Horizon 4, and I feel like Codemasters with their pedigree. I mean, Need for Speed's a thing. Need for Speed has had its glory days. I feel like Codemasters is more poised and more talented and in a better position to take Need for Speed and make it into something that will line up against a Forza and Forza Horizon. Like, I don't think I like Need for Speed. I think Criterion did a great game. Criterion also did a great thing with Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, and then turned Need for Speed Most Wanted into something that was like 80%. What was the game that you can't stand, Swiss?
Burnout Paradise.
Yeah, right. Turn Most Wanted into 80% Burnout Paradise, and eked and diluted the Need for Speed out of it. So I feel like Codemasters is I would rather, and this is maybe one of the reasons why I like this move, I would much rather see Codemasters take a swing at Need for Speed than Criterion to get that lineup again.
And Criterion's they're actually in England also.
Oh, are they really? I thought they were because maybe I have the history backwards. I thought that they were way back. Their roots went back to Madden, and then eventually they pulled off and did Need for Speed. And which is why I think of them being out of like San Mateo or whatever, or where Tiburon was. But maybe I have that wrong.
Yeah, I don't see them in their game section here on Wikipedia that they ever did anything with Madden. But I mean, they could have been like a side thing or something. I don't know.
Oh, no, we'll just chalk that up to me being wrong, like I was about the last one. It's all good.
Right. They did do stuff with Battlefront, though. You were right with that. Yeah, Burnout, and then they did the couple of Need for Speeds. Excuse me. And then some stuff for Battlefront 1 and 2, so and up to 5. Battlefield 5, excuse me. All right. So, Swiss, any other comments on this one?
Well, not really. I just want a good Need for Speed game.
Yeah, well, hopefully soon. So, all right. So the next news article I have here is actually going to bridge the EA news and then into our next section, the game announcements. There's more EA news, but it's EA Play and Xbox Game Pass library. They've announced 3 games coming up. They're going to have Madden 21, which actually already came out on the March 2nd. Star Wars Squadrons, which I'm not sure. It just says later in March, so I don't think it's out yet. And then in April they're gonna have NHL 21 up there. So bringing some fairly recent games that you'll be able to get for free if you have Game Pass, because that EA Play is part of that now. It's pretty cool. I didn't. I was interested in Star Wars I keep wanting to say Rogue Squadron, Star Wars Squadrons, but I just never got a chance to pick it up. So it's actually right up my alley since I'm doing my Xbox Pass year this year. Not actually buying any games on Xbox yet. So that's interesting. And actually, Madden NFL 21 too. But I guess we just had a Super Bowl recently, so they're kind of like, all right, here you go. We'll give you the Madden NFL 21, the newest one. So that should be pretty cool. And also along with NHL. So I'm very excited to play those two games. I played a little bit of 2020 Madden 2020 when it came out, when EA Play first came out on the Game Pass service. Excuse me. But it'd be good to play the newest version. And also NHL I haven't played in a long time. So it's going to be great to play another hockey game to see how that's different from back in the past. Probably like 10 years since I played a hockey game. So I guess because I don't think Swiss you have Game Pass right now. Any of these interest you right now?
Well, of course, the bane of my life is the fact that yet again I paid for Star Wars Squadrons like a month or two before they announced that it was coming to Game Pass. So that all being said, I don't feel that bad about it because I paid for Star Wars Squadrons on PC, and EA Play on PC is still not where it needs to be yet to have been rolled out. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. I really can't imagine that. Obviously, I have a jaded view when it comes to anything that is a simulation like not being on PC. So I just question how good a game Star Wars Squadrons can really be on PC on consoles. So that doesn't bug me. Great to hear that Madden and NFL and NHL are coming. Um, so yeah, you said Madden and
NHL.
NHL, right? Okay, all right.
Yeah, NHL coming out in
I'm looking
April.
at the
Yeah.
URL that says NFL 21. No, yeah, because I don't play Madden enough to really warrant paying for that, year after year. So Game
Yeah.
Pass is kind of where I play Madden because I only dabble in it. But I am a staunch lover of the NHL franchise, to the point where one of DB's very early challenges of me when I claimed that I was going to leave consoles behind was, well, where are you going to get your NHL fix? And as he predicted, I came back. Yeah, that's neat that it's coming since I didn't buy NHL 21. I don't think I bought NHL 21 this year. So it for me as a consumer, it positions me to where with EA Play being on Game Pass, it positions me to where I can make slightly more tactical choices on which EA Sports franchises I buy. I play FIFA, I play NHL, and I dabble in Madden, and now I have a little more choice about, do I really need to buy that year's version, or can I just play it on Game Pass if I'm not really going to put in, a full season on it?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the PC version was originally supposed to be December of last year, but then they pushed it back and they just said later this year at some point. So haven't given an exact date yet. Hopefully we'll hear something soon.
When Madden comes out like on these services, is this typically when they do it in March?
That I'm not sure because this is the first time I've had EA Play. Maybe Gascles, you might be able to answer that, or if one with NHL or something.
I don't know because I think, like you said, I think this is the first year that they've rolled it out on Game Pass. But I will say,
Yeah, Game Pass.
kind of maybe makes sense, right? If it comes out in like August, so now we're roughly about 6 months before when NFL 22 is going to come out, and my guess is 90% of their sales are in the holiday season for that, and like
Yeah.
who goes and buys Madden NFL 21 in the spring? Probably not a lot of people, so not a.
I was just curious why they chose March instead of say April, because at least with April you have a little bit of a bump in NFL news, given that the draft is usually at the end of April. So we're coming down off the Super Bowl, and I figure like there'd be a blip of interest in April, but I don't know if it really matters because I don't know if like how that would translate to sales or how EA gets a cut depending on how many people play it or what have you. I don't know what the monetization is like, but that was my only real thought on it.
Well, I think we've seen articles now that say, the monetization model on Game Pass is a bit like it's different for each publisher. Because I think their rates per time player spent will be different depending on whether they're premium properties or not. But we have gotten indications that it is again kind of like the Spotify and Amazon Music or whatever model. It's if somebody plays your track for 10 plays, right, then you get paid 10 times. So it's
Right.
by volume. I mean, my feeling is I don't know. This is for certain. My feeling is you get spring break in March. And so putting a big meaty game out there that, somebody who's not going home for spring break or whatever can spend, their entire time kind of getting into to mount up and build towards that time frame in April that you're talking about might, be a way that they get volume consumption level monetization. I don't know.
All right. And then just a few other Game Pass related games, real quick. Code Vein, Pillars of Eternity 2, Deadfire, Dirt 5, and Elite Dangerous were just recently released back in February. So stacking up the games in Game Pass, thank you. So I can have something to play on Xbox. All right, up next, Gascles. You have a story here. Days Gone is coming to PC. From what I can tell on the Discord chat, you were really excited for this one.
Yeah, almost as much as I was excited for Doom 3 in VR on PlayStation 5, but that's a story for later tonight, probably. It just to oh, never mind, because I forget what I was going to say about. Oh, so on the last article, the one other thing I'll add is what we don't know now, and because I haven't dug into it and haven't tracked it. So there's a bit of a similarity to kind of the movie model a little bit, in terms of like movie studios and DVD sales and streaming services, right? There's a time phase gap, right? The movie comes out in theaters, then a certain amount of time has to pass, and that's written into different people's contracts before they can come out on disc, and then you're supposed to have some buffer time to let those disc sales go before it shows up on streaming. No, that's the way the world was before this whole pandemic thing, which has upset the whole apple cart. But my point is what we haven't seen yet is if. So we know that there's get on Game Pass, the game's on there. At a certain point in time, the game goes away, and that Microsoft does look at, hey, people who have Game Pass onboarded onto this game. The game leaves Game Pass, right? Sales that occur because you're halfway through the game and you want to finish it, so you go ahead and pay for it at a discount is a thing. So I kind of wonder. What I haven't looked at for EA is, I wonder. It wouldn't surprise me at all if the amount of time that a game spent on Game Pass for EA was not as long as some of the other titles, right? To try and push those sales. But I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, Days Gone. Days Gone is coming to PC. This article over on EGM Now by Matthew Bennett. Sony Interactive Entertainment President and CEO Jim Ryan has revealed that Days Gone will be the next PlayStation game making the jump to PC. According to GQ, a whole slate of PlayStation games are getting PC releases, with the next being Bend Studios' Days Gone this spring. Previously, Guerrilla Games brought Horizon Zero Dawn to PC through Steam and the Epic Game Store. So, first of all, I thought it was interesting the way he said that Guerrilla Games brought Horizon Zero Dawn. Again, a thing I haven't dug into. Did a dev team at Guerrilla Games do the port? Or was that outsourced? Because if they did the port, then that's a thing to take note of. Because normally I would expect that, the original core team did the development and then they outsourced to some other studio who's a port expert to do that. So that's interesting. If they did do it and the expectation is that Bend Studios is going to port their own game, I question how well that's going to go because, I don't know, say what you will. I mean, Bend Studios has some heartfelt properties in its catalog, but they've never been like Sony Santa Monica, right? Or some of these other studios that have made, definitely not like Naughty Dog or Sucker Punch, right? They're not revered in the same kind of company as those studios are. So But then again, maybe you go, hey, maybe before you guys, we spend more money on you guys releasing a new IP. Maybe you just spend your time doing this port to PC.
They
Switch.
they used a company called Virtuos.
Okay. So yeah. So that would be more what I would expect. So it was just interesting the way he said it. I mean, I'm sure Guerrilla Games was consulted and had to put some people on, being liaison and interface for that. But yeah, but the reason this caught my attention, and I want to say DBQ posted this to the newsroom, and then I voted for it tonight. I'm not sure, but this goes into the whole thing. We've talked a lot tonight about about publishers prioritizing resources, and so I kind of and resources includes capital, right? And so if they're outsourcing this, they're paying somebody to do the port. I just find it curious to so there's been this dialogue, about Sony properties going to PC, and some internet outcry from Sony fanboys about they shouldn't be porting their games to PC because then that dilutes the number of people that want to buy PlayStation, and the only reason to buy PlayStation is because of the exclusive games, and so we shouldn't be letting PC players play. Yeah, a lot of, I guess, what I would argue is stupidity, but by the same token, so I've never felt that they shouldn't port their games to PC. But I have said that maybe for Sony, I would be selective about what games I port to PC. So, and I don't know. Do we know is Days Gone built on the same engine as? So we know that the Horizon engine was used to build Death Stranding. So I'm curious if Days Gone is built on the same engine. I don't know if that's true. I can't recall. I just feel like Days Gone is just a game that didn't need to be ported to PC because it didn't really perform that well on console. I know there are some people out there who love it, but I just amongst Sony properties that wouldn't necessarily have been my first choice to port to PC, and I don't see it doing gangbusters on sales on PC either.
Looked like it used Unreal Engine 4 for Days Gone, modified version of it.
Okay, well that still should translate to making the PC port a little bit easier, but again, I just feel so. This to me is an analog to the Marvel Studios right now, right? When Marvel makes decisions, I kind of go, I don't know that comic book property is something that a movie needs to be made out of. Like, I think you have other things in your stable that maybe you would prioritize higher than, say, making an Eternals movie. But like I said, I have to think that there are other premium games that I would port. Swiss, I know. I mean, why not port Ghost of Tsushima, right? Or
I feel like they probably have a time lapse, like you said, that they want to allow, and it's probably like Ghost of Tsushima is probably not outside that window quite yet. Especially with the PlayStation 5 launching. I think I saw a story recently that they're going to do some enhancements or something for Tsushima. But I don't know. I don't have as much of a problem with it because it's mostly just like, whatever, we can do it. We might as well. And there may be a play here in that it's just a move to show we are committed to porting our like quote unquote tentpole titles, even if it didn't do as well. It's like showing, Horizon Zero Dawn wasn't necessarily a fluke. Like we're gonna keep kind of doing this and building off of that. So yeah, I don't have a strong opinion on it. I did not play Days Gone. I think DB played it. I don't think he was that enthusiastic about it. I don't think he hated it, but yeah, if it's fairly straightforward, especially being on Unreal Engine 4, I think it is maybe just more like a I don't know, a flag or a signal to say this is going to be something that we're doing moving forward. You're muted, Tao.
Sorry. Thank you. It's kind of funny you mentioned, they should kind of pick and choose on the games they want to port, because evidently, from what I'm reading, for Gorilla, I guess it wasn't the smoothest port, at least out of the gate. Uh, that Virtuoso, I think that's what you said it was called. I guess they had never done any PC ports before, so I guess that was kind of a mess when it finally when it did get ported over. So it looks like it's been fixed now, from what I can read. But I don't know. Maybe they have to pick who they're porting more so than the games that they're porting over. So at least it was on Unreal Engine. I'm assuming it should run fairly well. I mean, hopefully.
No. When did God of War come out? That came out in 2018. So that would have been, I think, if you were going to really choose one and say, you know, we maybe yeah, that kind of undercuts my argument then. Because if you're really committing, you would have put a God of War out there rather than.
Well, it just makes it super interesting how Jim Ryan's going to try and drive this theme, right? Because I feel like they're walking this fine line of, I think there's some agreement with Sony leadership from the members of the PlayStation community that say, like, games shouldn't go to PC. They don't agree that all games shouldn't go to PC, but they're obviously, I feel like they're definitely identifying very premium properties. They're not porting The Last of Us, right? They're not porting God of War, probably, because their argument is that those are the things that make people buy a PlayStation. But Horizon Zero Dawn, great game, and maybe it has something to do with sales numbers. I would think Horizon
Well,
Zero Dawn. Yeah, go ahead.
the other thing is if you put Horizon Zero Dawn out when you're also kind of announcing Horizon Zero Dawn 2, or that was like, at least you can drive some hype for a system seller on the next platform. So
Yeah, and then the other thing that I'm kind of curious about is, we've talked in the past about how there's this kind of knock-on effect with Xbox, right? I think that there's probably a synergy that a ton of Xbox players, right, more, you know, um, at a higher volume. If you think about like PC gaming as an attach rate almost, right, that volume is higher for Xbox players than PlayStation players. And so I wonder if there's an effort to eat into a certain part of the gamer market that is, hey, if we can get these people who play only on PC, right? I know, I definitely know that there's the argument that, hey, if a game's available on PC, I don't need the console. But I also think that there's an argument. I don't know if it's of equivalent weight or less, that says, hey, it's really great when I have the PC and the console platform, because then I can pick and choose. And in some cases, sometimes I will like something so much that I play it on console because I want to be part of that zeitgeist and part of that experience. But then when it ports to PC, where I think it plays better and it's discounted and not as expensive, I'll go ahead and pick it up a second time, right? Because that's my nostalgia play. Kind of like, Destiny was, across the two different versions. So I wonder if there's also an effort to try and cultivate some of those consumer numbers as well.
when does the next they announced a new God of War, right? At the previous E3, like Ragnarok or whatever it was. But that's probably not coming out for a while.
Yeah, and I don't think it was. at the previous E3. I think it was. I think it was in that. I think it was in the COVID E3, like the virtual discombobulated E3 time frame over the summer when they were announcing games that were coming to PS5. I think they did. I thought it was at that point that they confirmed that there was going to be a God of War 5, essentially.
Yeah, it's because it'd be interesting if they would release a God of War on PC in the run up to God of War 5, kind of like, a lot of times. I mean, we see it all the time on Steam where like a sequel's coming and then they put the previous game for free or something. An
Well,
Epic.
well, let me ask
But
you
I,
this.
but I think I agree with you though. I don't think that's what they're doing. I think, like you said, I think they want God of War and they want like The Last of Us. They just want those to be 100% exclusive. So I don't expect to see that happening.
Well, let me ask you this: do you think that this is a precursor to an announcement for Days Gone 2?
I don't know, because it feels like, I mean, there wasn't a lot of hype. Um, there's a part of me that just wonders if it was just, if that is their plan, like if they're using it as like kind of keeping games on people's radar. If this is just like, man, we don't want to go too long without doing it and just throw it out there. Because like where's, I don't know, where's the demand for a Days Gone 2? And like I don't know about you guys, but I mean, not that I've played a lot of these zombie games, but I feel like it's a genre that is kind of getting tapped out. So like, who's super excited for, more zombie stuff? I don't, it's kind of hard to say other than we just have it sitting here. Maybe we can make a few extra sales. There's not there's not too much where I'm not seeing like the overarching strategy. I have some theories that I could say like where it makes sense, but I don't have any strong indications on any of it.
And I asked that question because I wouldn't poo poo on that, on the feasibility of that. Right there, it could be that they feel like Days Gone did well enough to go ahead and greenlight a second one. The one thing I will say, the one thing that where I feel like it does play as a strength in the Sony portfolio is just that, yes, they have a lot of strong properties. A lot of those properties are very long in the tooth, right? Infamous has been around a while. Yeah, it's only been 2 games, but it's kind of well worn. I mean, Uncharted, right, has kind of played its course. We don't know where it's going next. Probably some type of reboot or branch off extensibility, storyline. And what was the other one I was going to mention? And The Last of Us, right, is probably. I don't know that we're going to see a third The Last of Us, or that would make sense. So at least Days Gone is, if those are in the kind of their waning iterations, right? Days Gone is maybe again, put it in MCU terms, right? Maybe Days Gone is like phase 2 of like their next round of properties. Maybe not the most successful one, but could be the one that's kind of launching and getting the skids greased for the future of whatever their new IPs are going to be.
Yeah, I'm trying to look up some sales for Days Gone, but I really haven't seen anything other than like when it released. It just says that it was doing pretty good um, compared to the reviews out there. So I don't know. Stranger things have happened. So let's go on from Days Gone in. Our well, probably not a final story. We'll probably do one more after this. Actually, I think we have time. Swiss BlizzCon this past weekend. What do you got for us? What did they announce? Anything you're excited for?
No. But they announced stuff. And I figured we should do our due diligence and put it in the agenda. So I've never been like a huge Blizzard fanboy, so they got more World of Warcraft announcements, as they, you know, as is typical. So there's a new update. World of Warcraft Shadowlands, I guess, is going to be the next expansion. But they also announced like Burning Crusade Classic. So I guess now they're finally like putting that extra. The Burning Crusade was the first expansion for World of Warcraft, and now in the World of Warcraft Classic, they're going to start doing I guess adding the expansions. So
But
that came out in 2007, which is kind of crazy to think that um, World of Warcraft is still going going along that far.
so can I ask something real quick? And I know you said you're
Yeah.
not a fanboy or anything. I don't know, and I don't know if you'll be able to answer this question or yes, please. But the WoW Classic, that's something like totally separate from the regular. It's like a remaster, or like I don't understand what the
No,
classic.
it's not a remaster. It's literally they just like took
Just turned on those old servers.
took yeah, just took the code from way back when, and I don't know if they put any quality of life improvements into it. I don't think they did. I think it was mostly just people demanded it enough where they were like, "All right, fine, we'll do that." And now they're, I mean, it's successful enough where they're doing it for Burning Crusade as well. So
But you are right in that it's a different instance as I understand it, right? So your WoW Classic account, as far as I know, like that's its own thing and its own set of characters or whatever, right? Where if you're playing, modern WoW, you're off, in a different playing area, playing field. I don't know if they're separate accounts necessarily, but I kind of think of it like it's like it's well for us, right? If Swiss and I like it's wargaming dot it's the difference between wargaming.net and you're playing World of Tanks and World of Warships.
um, there is a story here. They are doing some tweaks, so it's not like just a complete just turn the servers on. They are kind of enhancing some things. Uh, like apparently they're making some of the bosses harder and stuff. Um, but but yeah, so it's. I mean, I think about how long World of Warcraft's been around. Like the game's evolved so much, so having that kind of old school option, it's nice for some people. Um, it says PC Gamer. We got this is where we're running it down from. Apparently asked if they were going to do Wrath of the Lich King, and doesn't sound like they have plans for that. All they said was we're focusing on Burning Crusade right now. That's what the community said they wanted. That's what we'll give them. Sounds like you're casting a vote for future things too, and we'll be sure to listen to you and others as we progress along through here. So I guess it really depends on how well Burning Crusade does, whether they kind of continue this sort of experiment. But that wasn't the only thing they announced. They did more than World of Warcraft. Diablo 4 and Diablo 2 Resurrected. So they did not put out a release date for Diablo 4, but they did, detail some other stuff, aspects of the game. I guess the Rogue is going to be one of the classes. The other, I guess for me, like the bigger news, it's not bigger news. The one that piqued my interest was that Diablo 2 Resurrected is finally coming out. So like the long rumored Diablo 2 remake is coming in 2021. Full 3D remaster, although you should be able to toggle between uh like classic Diablo 2 graphics and the new graphics. Um they said that they're using like the guts of the old game's code, so I guess the mechanics should still feel pretty familiar. They are going to throw in a couple of um quality of life improvements, but yeah, Diablo 2 is coming. Um I think after the Warcraft 3 Reforged though, um I feel like I don't know, I haven't seen a lot of stories, but I think the enthusiasm is a little bit is there probably a little bit more skeptical or cautious. Uh so we'll see how they do with that. Um Hearthstone still going strong, gonna do a new mode, Mercenaries. It's a roguelike mode with simultaneous combat. Um the new core set, it'll include reimagined versions of classic cards like I'm not even gonna try to pronounce these. Deathwing. um So they're still working on that. Overwatch. They did announce that Overwatch 2, pretty sure, now I don't see it in this story. I'm pretty sure I saw that Overwatch 2 is probably not coming out in 2021. It's going to take a little bit longer. They're apparently working on some mechanics changes. So there's a story here. Blizzard seriously reconsidering the role of tanks in Overwatch 2. They might even go by a different name in the sequel. And their hero passives may be implemented to further differentiate the 3 core roles. That's a little bit interesting to me because I got the sense, wasn't like Overwatch 2 supposed to be like simultaneously compatible somehow with the original Overwatch or something? It felt like more of a games as a service evolution rather than a full-fledged sequel. So it's kind of seeing some of this, it's like, oh wow, it's going to be more changes than I expected, but doesn't sound like it's on the horizon anytime soon. So any was this on you guys' radar anyway? You muted again, Tao.
Sorry. No, I mean, yeah, I'm kind of like you. There's nothing really on the Blizzard side that I'll play. Maybe Diablo 4 once it comes out, because I did get Diablo 3 for the Switch. I don't know if it'll come out for the Switch, but or whatever Switch or whatever Nintendo console is out at that time. But that's probably like the only thing. Yeah, I was never big into WoW. I never got into it. Hearthstone too, like card game type of game. I can't really get into. And Overwatch, I didn't like either. So they only got one in there for me. Gascleys, how about you?
Well, much like a song that I don't like when I first hear it, but then I see the video and I start to like the song, and I keep seeing the video, and by the whole time the whole thing's over, I actually am a fan of the song. I keep seeing more and more news about the Diablo II remake, and so that is just generating greater and greater interest. And I had a love-hate relationship with Diablo 2. I really liked those first few hours of the game, and then I felt like it just became a grind. And I feel, I have heartfelt feelings for Torchlight, because I feel like, those developers left Blizzard and then went and like corrected all the evils of Diablo 2 and made a much better game. Um, but there are things about this that interest me. I don't necessarily need to go backwards and play Diablo 2, but I kind of fell off of that game before all was said and done. It's very interesting, the co-op notions. I think we've had a fun time playing Diablo 3 co-op on the Switch. And so the notion of more of that kind of content coming out and it being cross-platform potentially, I think those things are big. And so, it's a very interesting premise to think about, connecting with someone, because what I've seen is that co-op will just be with one other player. But the notion of playing through that campaign, right, with a partner, and maybe hopefully reducing that feeling of grind and just the flat out difficulty of it, is a very interesting premise, particularly in kind of a relaxing kick back with your controller. You and I have played, Call of Duty together on console, and that's in my mind is that, leaning forward, elbows on your knees, tightly gripping the controller, high anxiety type of gameplay. And the notion of going through Diablo 2 seems a little more, relaxing than that. Not a ton more relaxing, but a little more relaxing in conjunction with another player. And the discussion of them expanding the content of Diablo 2 as well kind of has my interest peaked, right? Particularly if it comes to Nintendo Switch, which is a platform that just, doesn't always host like the type of content that I'm looking for. So anytime you lay another game on that pile, I start to prick my ears up and listen.
It is though only coming to PC in 2021. The consoles are going to be like, they didn't announce when the consoles would be released yet.
No, and that's fine. I think I have plenty to play in 2021, so I'm okay waiting until 2022. Particularly if it means that there's going to be a new Nintendo Switch by then, potentially.
Maybe, supposedly. All right. Actually, I guess, because if you want to run through our last news bit, so we got time. We're a little bit over an hour, but that's all right. We had some PlayStation VR news this past week.
Yeah, and can I actually hit the Days Gone sales numbers real quick first?
Oh yeah, if you found those, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't find anything super specific. It turns out, part of the story on it is that so what I'm taking away from what I've seen is that the game performed well for a Bend Studios game, but maybe not as well for. Well, I don't know. I think maybe not as well for a Sony game overall, but then it did outperform things like God of War and Horizon Zero Dawn in certain contexts. So I think at the end of the day, Sony didn't like how the story kind of played out and would be potentially interpreted, and just went silent about the numbers. But what I've seen, and again, some of this is on Wikipedia, so take it with a grain of salt, if you will. But it indicates that it outsold God of War and Horizon Zero Dawn at launch. And so I don't think over the lifetime, but at least for those first, some certain period of time of sales. In its first 3 days after launch, it sold approximately 114 units. Supposedly went on to suppress the lifetime sales of God of War and PlayStation 4. Now, that would have been at the time that this article was updated, so maybe, things have changed. It was the second best-selling video game software for the month of April in its year of release, putting it behind Mortal Kombat 11. It is the seventh highest debut in sales for a Sony-published title overall. I think at least for the PlayStation 4 generation, maybe overall, and the best game developed by Bend Studios. So, a little bit of a mixed bag, maybe news-wise. Maybe that's why Sony doesn't publish a bunch of numbers, but to me, not outside the realm of possibility of getting an announcement of Days Gone 2. What else is Bend Studios going to do, number one? And number two, maybe it really wasn't all that bad for them from a sales perspective, and did what Sony needed it to do, and maybe even a little better.
There's a lot of speculation
yeah.
online about the sequel. So I don't know if I don't see anything official regarding that, but I wonder if it sort of kind of like leaks to, but not like official type stuff. But
yeah. It would also be really curious. I also wonder how that game did regionally. It wouldn't surprise me that game maybe played a little bit better in Europe than it did in the U.S. So, who knows? PlayStation VR. This over on PlayStation blog, over on the PlayStation blog, directly from the mouth of, help me out here, Swiss, Hideaki Nishino.
Hold on, I did not have that article up.
Hideaki.
Oh, Hideaki Nishino.
Gotcha.
Hideaki Nishino.
And I quote, more than 4 years ago, we launched PlayStation VR to offer a look, I'm not going to quote the whole thing. Look, he just says that a new PlayStation VR is coming. The main reason I posted this is because, I think it's something that DBQ was obviously hotly awaiting. The question is, I find some of the titles that they released are announced early to be a little bit questionable. I don't know that we need Doom 3 in VR, or if that would have been like the premier title that I would have announced. Also, no release date, I think was announced on this, so, inside the realm of possibilities, he says won't be launching in 2021. So, again, during a pandemic, seems like a great time to release a VR headset, a little bit of escapism and for people to get away. The notion of this, waiting until 2022, I don't know. Some things here touting that, lots of integration with the DualSense wireless controller, which I do think will be great. It is currently my favorite controller out of the next gen. We knew it was coming, and some of the games they announced here would be coming. Well, he's just announced, what has played well, and I don't think these are indicative of sales numbers. I just think they're titles that he felt people would find recognizable in the press release. So I don't know. I guess the biggest things that I took away from this article was not coming out in 2021, and then in the days following this post on the blog, the fact that the titles that were announced include Doom 3. He does mention that there's going to be a new VR controller. I expect, quite honestly, that to carry like the same level of innovation as the DualSense controller. So I'm expecting something pretty spectacular. I don't know if that's the right term, but definitely, a bit above just kind of another rehash of like an Oculus type controller. So I actually find that pretty interesting. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Swiss, does this get you interested to go down the path of VR on the PlayStation?
I mean, I've always kind of wanted to try VR, but if I do get it, I feel like I'd probably end up getting it on PC. Um, but I don't know. That's for me. It's just like it's an investment that I don't know if I'm gonna. That's a lot of hardware money that I could put elsewhere. Let's put it that way. Like I could invest it in VR, or I can invest it in more games. So I don't know. None of these are like, oh
How
my god, I have to try that and experience that. So
how much was the PSVR on PS4?
I mean, obviously DBQ would be the expert, but I want to say like the headset was like 200, and then maybe it was a little more for the motion controllers and the camera. I think at the end of the day, I want to say like there was an offer for the whole bundle at like 250. I want to say.
maybe it's less than I thought it was. Maybe I'm thinking about like Oculus Rift prices.
I want to say there was definitely a
Yeah.
point where it initially came out where I was like, well, that's as much as the PlayStation 4 itself, um, uh, but yeah, I guess the main thing I was going to say is what I would say, regardless of how expensive it is um, having played with multiple VR headsets on PC, the thing is that, and people will tell you different, and cheerleaders who are on the bandwagon will tell you different. VR on the PC is not a robustly reliable enterprise, right? It is fraught with janky bugginess and unexpected outcomes, and like there was a point where I was live streaming playing in VR and I just had to stop because live streaming was already a thing in and of itself of troubleshooting and getting down right. But then like there was just zero reliability in being able to, on a given production night, to have hopes that like the VR setup and integration was going to go well and work. And immediately I'm the type of person who attaches things to his PC and takes them away. But like just like 90% of the time that I go to a PC and hook it up and then expect to be able to play, like that just didn't happen. So, what I will say, and again, we should definitely ask DB when he's back on, but the notion of, as is the case with any integration, right, where you own the whole stack, Sony VR on a Sony platform is locked from a requirements and design perspective, and they're not trying to accommodate 99 different configurations. From what I can see, it's a more reliable, consistent experience than you know, get an Oculus Rift and then like the software package like gets wonky and you know doesn't reseat you in the right direction and height, and then you launch a Steam game and so now Steam VR comes up and you got Steam VR and the Rift software package and they're fighting each other and not integrating well. So it's a thing.
Yeah, I haven't done any research on it because it just hasn't been like something that I was really that worried about gaming wise. So that doesn't sound fun. I did read that the new like VR for PS5 whenever that comes out, like they're trying to I think they said like they'd have like a single like connection cable or something and just some it sounds like that'd be the one that I would target if I were to do it. Um I don't think I have any interest in even getting a used PS4 VR headset.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely better today, but it was definitely painful, just as soon as a year ago. So the additional games, by the way, that Sony announces are coming to PlayStation VR are like I said, Doom 3. I'm trying to see what other 6 games. Something called After the Fall. I Expect You to Die 2. Fracked. Song in the Smoke, and the Zenith VR MMO. So nothing, huge or recognizable. I Expect You to Die is something that I think people have played, and so maybe the second one, might catch people's interest. But other than Doom 3, I didn't particularly see anything that would, cause me to come across the table and get into VR. I'm trying to look for the prices now. That it's very difficult because these prices are on Amazon, and
Oh
there's
yeah,
the
I can't.
supply constraint, of people, jacking prices up. So it's tough for me to tell
Yeah.
what PSVR MSRP was.
I can kind of see, I guess, Doom 3 because wasn't that, and I never played it, but from what I thought from what I saw, it kind of looked more horrorish. It wasn't as fast paced as some of the other Dooms. So I mean, if you're in VR, I think that's probably one of the bigger titles out there, is horror games. Because you're kind of pretty immersed in those kind of games. So I think that kind of makes sense, I guess. But I don't know. Like I said, I don't remember. I've only seen videos of it, so I haven't really actually played it. So I don't know. All right. Oh,
No, I
got some
mean,
guesses.
no. The only thing I was, it's I don't know. It doesn't feel the same as like, when everybody made the big outcry about Skyrim going to Switch and like, the nobody needs to play that game again. I poo pooed on that notion because there are those of us who haven't played Skyrim, right, or hadn't played it on. But I mean, I played Doom 3. It's a fairly thin, skinny experience, right? For for a game that's had two sequel iterations launch since then, it's just a weird thing to me to go back to stick into VR. Like why not do Doom 2016 in VR? Why not do Doom Eternal in VR? Like I just don't. There's a piece of that it's just strange to me. Now, I guess maybe I want to go back and say I want to say when the Rift was initially being developed, that one of the first, I want to say maybe it's because Doom 3 was like a test prototype pilot experience that they were using to show off Oculus Rift, and so maybe it was just a matter of taking that and making it production ready for Sony VR. So, but still, overall, just a weird play to me.
All right. So I think that is it for our news. Unless you guys have any other comments on anything we've talked about tonight. Nothing. All right. So picks plays for next week for our GX show. With the official announcement of Sony San Diego's MLB The Show for Xbox, let's revisit another surprise game or franchise that jumped from a platform exclusive. Play a little bit and reflect on the impact of the move to multi-platform that it had at the time, and or what the legacy is. So we have nothing for right now. I thought somebody had put a game down there, but I don't see anything. So I actually have a game in mind, but I might just the teensy. I might bend the rules a little bit, so we'll see. I'm still kind of debating on that. I've kind of played it a little bit now already, so I'll probably just stick with it. But I'll wait until next week, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. So next week is our GX show, hopefully hosted by DBQ Hams. Hopefully I'll be back by then, with myself and Swiss as co-hosts. I guess Cleese has the week off. So, gentlemen, thank you for tonight. I think we had quite the show. I thought it was going to be a little bit shorter just because kind of things changed around and I didn't get a chance to flush out the news a little bit more, the list of stories that we had. But we ran over as usual, so that's fine. For Mr. Swissguard and I guess Stamos, I am Towmaster99. Please take care of yourselves out there. Play the games that you want to play, and we will see you next time.
Yeah, I'm gonna do one alibi before we go out, just to not leave this question daily. So, MSRP for the Sony PlayStation VR headset, and so it was at launch. I think it was a $499 bundle, which included everything.
Wow.
So that was the headset, the camera, two PlayStation Move controllers, and then that bundle was eventually dropped to $450 and included a packing game of PlayStation Worlds. And then I want to say it eventually dropped to like $399, I think. So yeah, it was the cost of a PlayStation 4 Pro, really, at launch. So don't expect this one to be that much cheaper.
Probably not. No.
All right,
All right.
you've carried us out. I don't know that there's anything more to say.
Good night. That's all.
All right. Here we go.
En route.